What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So a couple of days ago, I gave out what my Team USA roster lineup would be at Four Nations. And today we got Canada. When looking at it, we have only 5 days until these rosters basically get finalized. Next Wednesday, they're going to do some cool announcement show. So here is my Team Canada. We're going to roll through it piece by piece. And again, when looking at this, this is who I would choose. This is not who I think that, what's the general manager? Don Sweeney, I think, is the head general manager for Canada. Not who he would choose because, again, some of the guys are basically locks. Apparently, Aiden Hill, Jordan Biddington will be the goalies for Team Canada. At least one of those guys would not be my goalie. This is who I think would make for the best Team Canada, based on not just who the best offense players, not even who the best players are, but in terms of players fits, player style, when looking at a bottom six, when looking at a bottom pair of defense or second pair, what makes the best potential team? That's what's so fun with these kind of videos, because yeah, you don't just write it in and make it automatic just based on maybe who you think the best is. It's team building. There are different roles that need to be filled on a team, but let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. And up first, I got the first line. I ended up going with Zach Hyman. I know some of the comments are going to be he has not produced at all for the most part. I think he's still below half a point per game right now, but I think we've seen him enough with Connor McDavid the last 2 seasons when he scored 50 goals as well as 83 points that he is a valid choice for Team Canada, especially. Again, he's not a top 3 forward on this team. I'm not trying to say that by putting him on this top line, but considering the fact he does have pre-existing chemistry with Connor McDavid as well as Mitch Marner, I think that would form just such a good line, especially when you have more so playmakers in Connor McDavid and Mitch Marner. You get that net front presence, physical guy on that top line. Yeah, they played together. They've had a shit ton of success together. Mitch Marner's having an amazing season. He has definitely played himself, rightfully so. He's not a top 2 forward on this team, but on that top line with a guy like Connor McDavid. And yeah, I don't think you need to put McKinnon with McDavid. I think it's probably better to split those guys up. Maybe late in games, if you're down, you make some super line out of those two as well as someone else. But I think in terms of a full game, this is a very, very strong first line. I'm sticking to it. The second line, Nathan McKinnon is centering it. No surprise there. You got Sidney Crosby, who's still playing at an extremely high level on the left. You could potentially put Crosby down the middle and maybe move McKinnon around. I am going with Sam Reinhart on that second right wing. Proving last year was absolutely no fluke. And even before last year, he was like a consistent 75 to 80 point pace, fantastic defensive winger. And yeah, I think that this line would be pretty solid defensively because you got a guy like Sam Reinhart. Crosby isn't playing that good defensively this year, but I think he locked the hell in defensively for this kind of tournament. This is a disgusting second line to have. It's better than Team USA's. I'm not going to lie. The third line, we got a little, again, pre-existing chemistry. I'm not sure Brandon Hagel is a top 9 forward on the team or maybe even top 12, but I think that pre-existing chemistry with the guy that is a top 5 forward on this team in Braden Point is definitely something worthy of putting Braden Point with Brandon Hagel together. And then Mark Stone, who was playing fantastic up until the season. I've defended this guy for so long. He had 21 points in his first 13 games. He's still listed as day-to-day. I don't think that they're throwing him on LTIR for the entire season off like a mid-November injury. But yeah, Mark Stone was playing great offensively, and we obviously know that he has been like arguably the best defensive right wing of the last decade or so. Like, he's awesome. You could arguably throw him up on that top line, but I decided to go with Sam Reinhart in that role, considering Sam Reinhart would maybe be the goal scorer of that line, although those guys can score at a high level. Lastly, Brad Marchand's already on the team. You could argue that he should be the 13th forward with the way that he's playing this season. I put him in a 4th line role because, again, I think he could kill a 4th line role. When you're not relying on him to really produce that much at an offensive clip, he can be that absolute physical pest on a 4th line. I went with Cirelli. I know that's going to be controversial because, again, his offensive ceiling is not that high compared to some of the guys that I did snub on this team. But again, when looking at a 4th line, when looking at the 3 centers ahead of him, you don't need Cirelli to be scoring at a high rate on this Team Canada. You need him to play very solid defense. And this guy, the last 5 years, has been one of the best defensive centers in the entire NHL, and the same kind of goes for Nick Suzuki. Great defensive guy, also had 77 points, also producing at roughly that same rate right now. This as your 4th line. Not the highest offensive ceiling. You could make an American line that maybe 4th line that has more offense firepower. But I think, again, in terms of team building, this would be absolutely locked down for Team Canada, especially late in games when they're protecting a lead. In terms of the top 2 pairs, one might shock you, one will not at all. We got Devon Toews and Cale Makar. Toews is all but a lock to make this team, considering the fact he does have that pre-existing chemistry with Makar. And yeah, you just put them together. They've been arguably the best pair in the NHL since Toews has got there. I went with Chris Tanev. Kill me. Again, I understand that there are better maybe overall, especially offensively, definitely offensively, right-handed defenseman to choose from. You're going to see some of the guys that I potentially snubbed in terms of righties, but I think a guy like Chris Tanev, because I think we can agree Josh Morrissey should be the second pair left-handed defenseman on this team. He has just been so good ever since 2023. I think pairing him with someone like Chris Tanev would be great. Maybe you could argue that at that point it just should be like Dylan DeMello, considering he's played so long with him. I believe Dylan DeMello is Canadian. But yeah, Chris Tanev has been arguably the best pure defenseman in the NHL for a long time running at this point. He's still playing at an extremely high clip for Toronto. Just having him on that second pair, you're not going to need him to play over 20 minutes. But yeah, have him on that pair, have him killing penalties. I think Chris Tanev, in terms of team building, would be a really good shot as that stay-at-home defenseman while Josh Morrissey can do more of his thing offensively. Then we got that bottom pair. I'm going with the Albertan pair of Mackenzie Weegar. I think he's very underrated. And Evan Bouchard. I understand that there's been some bad clips of him not really giving a shit or having bad turnovers. Still think that in terms of his two-way play, he has earned himself a spot on this team for the last 14 months. In goal, I went with Joey Daccord. Obviously, this is going to come down to whether or not he's eligible. He's had a 917 the last two seasons. He has been, at least, I got like one hair sticking up right there and it's white. But, Jesus. Okay, I fixed that. Now back to the video. Joey Daccord, yeah, 917 the last two seasons. If he's not eligible, considering he is a dual citizen because of his dad, but if they can't get him a passport, obviously Thompson becomes a starter. He's also been exceptional this year for the Washington Capitals. And then in terms of my extras, I went with Dylan Strome. Again, you could throw Strome up on that fourth line instead of Brad Marchand. I just kind of like the physicality of Brad Marchand on that fourth line. But yeah, Strome has played himself to at least a 13th forward role. You could argue if the Hagel point chemistry didn't already exist, I would maybe go with Strome over a Hagel, but again, I think pre-existing chemistry does matter to a degree. Dougie Hamilton, great right-handed defenseman, but doesn't play a lot of defense. Same with the guy like Alex Pietrangelo nowadays. They're very good offensively, but you look at this team, you don't need a ton of offense. I'm looking at more so two-way guys, and I think, or more so defensive guys in the case of Chris Tanev, and then Cam Talbot. Yeah, if Daccord's not eligible, you move Talbot up to the backup. I'd probably throw Bennington or Hill, maybe more so Hill. No, I'd go with Jordan Binnington as the third goalie at that point. But yeah, here's my team, Canada. I think that the top 9 is kind of pretty much set in stone. I'd be shocked if any of those guys don't make the team, even Zach Hyman. Fourth line's a little bit interesting with Cirelli. Suzuki, I think, is going to make it, especially considering the tournament's in Montreal. Chris Tanev, I don't think anybody's going to have Chris Tanev on their team. I just wanted to give him some love because he has been so good defensively consistently across his career. Evan Bouchard, I feel like some people are going to snub off. Daccord's the big question mark, whether or not he's actually going to be eligible. And then in terms of my extras, yeah, you got Dylan Strome, Hamilton, and Cam Talbot. Some guys that I left off, again, Pietrangelo, Travis Konecny, he's just kind of an all-offense forward. John Tavares, a veteran guy that did play in 2014, but I don't foresee him making this team. I'm trying to think, who else did I potentially snub? Shea Theodore. Maybe you throw the Theodore-Pietrangelo pair out there, but again, I'd just rather have Weegar or Josh Morrissey in terms of left-handed defensemen. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you think about this team? Am I absolutely out to lunch for having Chris Tanev on this team, or is that a good, underrated, sneaky pick? I'll be seeing you in the next one.